Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Reverend Tiny live with Leslie. And the topic today is culture identity. The number one question that I'm posing is, and I'm laughing because it's like, whose are we? Who do you belong to? Right? How does it make you feel? What do you identify as? When you show up and show out, what do they say? Is that such and such? We're going to delve into this hot topic. And the reason why this came up, because I was in a cultural identity workshop recently, and it sparked something. It was a wealth of information. It was informational, but what hit me is how I came here. And when I looked at my passport, it said American. And it gave me a sense of confidence in something else where I'm not identified as black. I'm not being labeled as black. And so we're going to open it up, and I'd like to get your thoughts, Miss Leslie. Looking well.
First of all, thank you for having me on your channel. I do appreciate it. And the interesting thing is, so I spent about 3.5 years in Africa, 2 months in Tanzania, and then the remaining time I spent in the Gambia. And now I am back in the United States. And there were things and emotions that were coming up, which is, you probably saw those posts that I was putting on Facebook, the my top five of this, of that, comparing Gambia to America. I'm gonna need a moment post because things I I had gotten I had gotten used to being in survival mode
Mm-hmm.
and started to prepare myself for plan A, plan B, plan C, just to make sure that if something happens, I was already prepared in advance to fix it. So there were certain things I did every day, regardless, because if I didn't do it, I would forget maybe the next time and then be like, oh, I forgot that. It could change your whole day, just like
Mm-hmm.
you said. You try to reverse your car. You get in your car, and the assumption is, I'm gonna get in this car. I'm going to turn the key, and the car is going to work.
And it doesn't.
And then all of a sudden it doesn't. And it's like, now what do I do? Plan B is already into effect. We do not have the luxury to go, okay, well, that's it. I guess I just won't do anything. Whatever you plan to do still has to be done. So you're making that left turn to get there. It adds a level of stress. Being back in America has allowed me the opportunity to see the amount of stress that I was under that I wasn't even aware of. Everything falls into place so easily that you don't have to really think about it. It just happens. So I'm here and I'm having more time to think. I want to make it more personal. Who am I in this space, in this world, in this flesh? One of the things that I decided to do just before I left, but confirm more for me, I would not describe myself as an African American because I was not born in Africa. So when you talk about your passport and your passport says American, it's just indicating where you were born.
Mm-hmm.
My ancestors may have been born in Africa. And so I can keep that connection to my ancestors. However, I was born in America. So I decided I'm just going to use the term Black American. Because there are Black people that I meet that are from various parts of the world, whether they're in the Caribbean, they're in London, they're in Ireland, they're in Sweden. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Black people are everywhere, right? So Black American is how I choose to describe myself. But I was having a conversation recently with someone, and she said, well, you can use American African. Some people decide to switch it. I'm American, but I'm still holding on to my African roots. So they use, instead of African American, they use American African. So I'm going to tell you a quick story. I was in the airport at JFK getting off the plane. I was one of very few Black Americans on that plane. And behind me was a woman from the Gambia who was born there talking with her children. And she was saying how she could switch out her passport. She had dual passport. And so when she was going to the Gambia, she would show them her Gambian passport, which would process them through the line faster. And when she came to JFK, she would show them her American passport, which would allow her to pass through the line faster. So she says, I am an African American. And I'm like, okay. And she made it sound like she could rightfully take ownership of that. And
Wow.
it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I said, I can respect what this woman is saying. So it was already in my thought process to change who I describe myself and how I wanted to show up in the world. And so, as a Black American, that's the best way that I can describe who I am. Um, the interesting thing is, I think that I walk through the streets differently while I'm here.
Yes.
Before I left, I worked all the time. I only came home really to sleep and get a little bit of rest and go back at work. I was always in the process of doing. Coming back retired has allowed me to view my neighborhood differently. And I used to find comfort in going to Manhattan in order to socialize or to do things because that's where I worked. That was where I basically would call home. So if I was in Midtown Manhattan, I knew where to go to get something to eat. I knew where to shop. I could relate to people. Now that I have no real need to go into Manhattan, I am learning my neighborhood. And of course, after being away for 3 years, there is so much change that has taken place. There has been renewal and renovation in my neighborhood to the point where I'm surprised. There are high-rise buildings with doormen and pools on top of the deck and gyms that are there. And old buildings have been knocked down and beautiful apartments erected to the point where I think I could not afford to live there. I'm a grown whole woman here. And I'm like, I don't even think I want to fill out an application, but denied. But the funny thing is, I'm moving in my neighborhood differently. And I think I find beauty in it. I find
Nice.
beauty in being in my neighborhood where there are mostly Black people. I find beauty when I see them doing the things that I hadn't seen in a while. when I see the yellow school bus, I know that the children are safely being transported to school and home.
So you're comparing, and you know that's something that we can't do is really compare America with the Gambia. We're just gonna stick to Gambia. That's where I'm at.
Sure.
You know,
So by comparing, I'm not saying good or bad, just different. That's
way
all.
different, way
Yeah,
different.
way different. But when you first posed the question to me, like a lot of thoughts came into my being. Okay, so when I left, there were a lot of things happening in politics. There were a lot of things happening with Black Lives Matters. There was the forefront of us viewing people being unalived by police officers. And then I come back and there is still politics. There's drama in that. There's people still being unalived. And so that part hasn't changed. So I'm like, the more they change, the more things stay the same. Now, with that being said, I view my neighborhood differently, so I walk through it differently. Number one, I don't let the things that I hear around me affect me. I have a shield up, and only I will let in the information that I need so I can control what I receive. And so it keeps me kind of grounded so that I don't make knee-jerk reactions on where I should be or how I'm going to respond, right? Also, there was something else I wanted to say, but I do see the appreciation of my neighborhood, and I think it reflects on how I walk in the street. You know, um, you don't see a whole lot of people walking around with cowrie shells in their hair in New York City. There is something about the way I walk that people know I've been somewhere, that I've been exposed to more awareness and knowledge. And I was at a table trying to purchase an item that this gentleman was selling because I love a market. I love an outdoor market. And I noticed that in my neighborhood now on Jamaica Avenue, there are a lot more vendors that have tables and they're showcasing their stuff. So it's a lot like being at the market, you know. And so they got a lot more crystals out there. And I'm asking them, you're selling it, but do you know what it is? How do you direct people to get the right one or explain as you're going along what it is or what it's for and stuff like that? But I was at the table and the gentleman who was selling the items were not there initially. Someone else came over and said, I don't know the price of anything here. The person who's supposed to be here, he stepped away, but I expect him shortly. And just as he was saying that, he pulled up. He gets out of the car, comes to me, and he says, because I was on the phone talking with someone. I had my earbuds in, I'm on the phone, and I had the sister on hold. And then he comes up and says to me, let me greet you properly. And I said to my friend, I gotta call you back. And I stood there in all of my regalness and let him do so. And
Not
he greeted me as a woman, as a Black woman, as an elder, and as one that is due respect. And I appreciated him for that. I never would have done that before. But I know now, coming from Africa, that that is my rightful place. And I appreciate the fact that that man knew it took nothing away from him. It actually elevated him when he wanted to greet me
Right.
in a specific way. And so I I think I'm walking through the streets differently. I've always loved wearing dresses and skirts, but I only wore them at work. Then I get to Africa and I'm wearing my dresses and my wrap skirts and I'm having fun. I'm enjoying the heat and the sun on my skin, trying to maintain this tan. So when I get back, I ain't all, too little light skin.
It's all rain now. It's all rain and mud.
I
So,
I
you're
know, but
missing
there's
the
still a
rainy
little bit of
season.
sun. Can I tell you something? It's been raining here too.
Wow.
Yeah, but the rain hits differently here. I'm gonna have to tell you, it hits a little differently. But I was walking down the street with one of my frilly wrap skirts on, and I used to think before, oh, I'm too old, I'm overdressed.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Gambia,
They,
overdress is it. That's the norm. You
mm-hmm.
know, somebody could have a beautiful dress on with their shoulder hanging out and a peplum skirt down to the floor, and they carrying fruit on top of their head. That is the way that they move. And I love the fact that I could grasp onto that, take hold of that, and move the same way. And I determined that I was going to do that when I got here. So I put my little simple black top on, put my wrap skirt on. And as I'm walking, the sister says to me, "Oh my God, you look so nice." And I said, "Well, thank you,
And that's important, bringing back the humanity in it, respecting and honoring the divinity in each one of us as we go through our own cultural identity and the differences between the Gambia and America and going home. So when I went back home in December, it was a culture shock. It was cold, and it was like I didn't
mm,
like the cold, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that I was dressed different until I was in Verizon. And the guy who was helping me, he said something, I'm chatting, and I mentioned I was in Africa. He said, oh, that's why you dress like that. And I was like, oh, I'm dressed different. I didn't know I was dressed different, but everybody else recognizes when you dress a different way. So I got totally
yes,
enmeshed in the culture here with the dressing and just being comfortable. But when you go back, it does change. And then not only when you go back, you come back. So I came back, it was a short trip, and it's like, wow, I really left and came back, and I'm here. So it
mm,
changed how I navigated. We're identifying with Black American. And first of all, I was always taught never to call myself Black. I was always taught to say you're more. And so when you say you're more, people are, okay, what's that? And so especially important in Oregon, it goes on deaf ears. And I was a
hmm,
part of Temple 2, the More Science Temple and Temple 2, right? So it was always heartfelt to how do I get this information and our heritage out to be palatable so people, to respond and resonate with whatever they want to identify, but let's go back to the roots so we can put respect on all of these nations. Africa was
yes,
54 nations before it was broken apart. And that's what I really want to allude to in this cultural identity topic is that when you're identifying something, you're placing it and we're putting it in blocks. And that's not necessarily how we should look at things. We need to look at things in a whole spectrum and bringing our people back into the wholeness, into that divine light where we were nations and respected. What was hard for me, Leslie, here was I'm not a Black American, and they don't respect Black Americans, nor am I an African American. They don't respect African Americans. So, my true question may be how do we put respect on each of us? Because that's what's really needed. If I feel if we could just respect each other and respect each other's identity as whoever we want to show up, but just respect it. We get two bobbed, and two bobs mean the white price. I got two bob today. I almost went off, but I didn't. I was like, I'm so happy I got enough money, right? And it's a struggle because we constantly have to fight that construct. Just because I'm from over there, I live here.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't no, they don't care, right? And it's like, nah, you got more than me. I don't care if you got $2 more, you still got
It's still
two.
more.
It's still more, right? And we want $1.50 of it. That's
You can give me the whole two and then call
right.
somebody to give you,
And there's no consciousness around it. Like it's dog eat dog. And some days I'm like, wow, I am here for a purpose and for a change. And when that change comes, I'll know it. But right now, I'm not going to fight tooth and nail for everything. I'm going to just stand up for what I have to stand up for and let everything else go because time is too short. And I've already lived a long life. Like, I'm not even tripping no more. Like, my car was tripping. Okay, no problem. You make another phone call. It's really how you navigate has been coming up. Navigating and Black beauty and Black cultural identity, navigating these Gambian streets, as some of the sisters say, and just being divine order and protection all the time. That's what resonates right now with me because so much goes on. It's so all the time, you know. It's like, and it was making me feel. I was really angry at the beginning, like, he said this about Black people, and then he said that, but it's like they can't help it because that's what the media portrays.
mm-hmm.
And that's a whole nother topic. Like, we don't have that. The remote could just to change the media and say, no, this is how Leslie really lives. She's not Shaniqua on the block, or when they were sagging. And I'm like, really? Or, I was on the beach and they was like, from America, and we're talking and I'm talking to them and they're doing loose lip hand signs. I don't want to say gang signs, but that's what they was trying to do. That's like, y'all don't even know. Y'all in such a
Mm,
beautiful place, and here society has messed it up for them to think it's acceptable.
right.
And then me, Big Mama, got to come and it's like, no, baby, and try to deviate that mindset because it's going to get them in the end. And everybody's a big dreamer here, and they dream America, America. I want to go to America. I love you, mommy. Take me to America. I'm like, man, when you get there, you're going to run back. And that's what they don't know, the struggles that we face with, police brutality, discrimination, racism.
So
There's
let's talk
freedom
about
here.
that. Let's talk about that. Police brutality. If they've never really seen it in their own country, then how could they have a bigger understanding of what it is? Because the most harassment you may get is being pulled over and asked for a couple of, some money, you know,
But
in Gambia.
they haven't experienced none of that. My nephew,
Exactly.
my nephew, we grew up like brother and sister, 4 years apart, got shot in the head by the police. So when I talk about police brutality, I'm talking about in my own home. I've seen
Okay.
I've seen several people get shot. I
Mm,
seen a man
mm,
get shot 14 times. I seen the smoke
mm,
coming from his body. He was
mm,
shaking and he was like, I'm hot. And they won't give him
mm,
water. You can't even give him water. And it's like the cartoon, it pours right out. So
mm.
when you talk about America and the violence, when I came here and I seen four men with ball caps, I was like, they ain't gonna get shot. Dang, ain't the police ain't running after them. I was like, there's a freedom that they don't understand here. And that's what our American brothers and sisters need to just come and see that part. because you navigate
Exactly.
the streets in your true beingness, whatever that is on different levels, because it's leveled. That's a freedom. Now, one thing about the police, they all are us, right? So they're not going to do too
Right.
much damage, right? So that's a protection,
Right. What,
right?
right. And what else?
And then look, you said police.
Honey, they don't have any guns. They don't have guns.
Wait, right?
It- They don't have handcuffs. They don't
It's
have
not,
tasers. I think I saw one police officer with handcuffs attached to his
no,
shirt,
they have the
and
little
I wondered
plastic
if he had
strip.
keys. Did he have keys to the handcuffs? Was it like just something dangling down to look, nice or what? So
And it's right. I never thought about that. Like, they
so
don't.
when
Nobody's
you're
getting
saying,
handcuffed.
if you say that your cousin got shot by the police,
My nephew.
your nephew, how can they make that connection if the policemen don't have guns? They really don't understand that part.
But it's a protection for them because they don't have to live that horror. So
Exactly.
they may have to live in another sense with going to bed hungry or the other things that go on, like the male prostitution or the child prostitution, and seeing
Mm,
that adverse effect on the Gambia and the Gambia culture. But that
right.
violence, once you've seen that violence, you don't unsee that.
Yeah, the violent when I hear the word violence in Gambia, it's a little different. So since we are talking and just talking, there seems to be more violence toward animals. I'm not an animal or like a PETA person, pets or whatever, but PETA. But when it comes to the major Muslim holidays, and you know that people are going to be slaughtering a lot of animals to celebrate, that to me is where the violence comes in. I feel that more than I do um, seeing a police officer relate with another person. There
Well,
is a lot of respect for police officers. You really have to have a lot of respect and what's an association with that person to know that even their words carry authority. So when they say pull over, you pull over. If they say show me your license or something like that, then that's what you're doing. Hold on. Mike, I'm on a phone call.
Yeah, you got two packages outside.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, when so violence toward people seems to be on a smaller scale, but I see the violence toward animals, which,
but
like I said, is a
okay, you
bit
say
weird
that,
to me.
and then this is a Muslim country, and it's
Mm-hmm.
all the sacrifice, what we call the ram scam, the 2,000 dollars
Right.
at every at every station. But that's an imported religion, and I'm not even going to touch it because it's not my per
Exactly. It's
se
not, it's
religion,
not for us to have a
and that's
discussion about.
their culture. And when you
Exactly.
like when they say when you in Rome do as the Romans, but not really, and that's just what it's about. Like, I don't even eat meat. Like,
Right. So let me ask you something. So
yes.
I remember talking with my son Jordan when he was younger, and I don't know, he was going through an identity crisis. And I think I remember him saying to me, as Black Americans, we don't have a culture. But now that I'm home, I see it all around us. So when I'm looking at this at the a sister who has her hair styled a certain way and she's dressed, how we do in the summer. In the
Mm-hmm.
summertime when it's hot, we will put on the tiniest clothes, no matter how, I'm
We be
seeing a
out.
lot of, waist and bellies, and they ain't showing no shame. Okay, they ain't showing no shame. And to me, that's a part of the culture, meaning this is who I am. And if you don't accept me, too bad. I accept myself. The music, the way we walk, the way our babies style their hair, the way
It's the
mommy's
same over
dressed.
here. It's like,
Yes, it is.
they look like my nieces. It's like, for me, it was like I was home. I was so
Okay.
comfortable because I seen my daddy, I seen my uncle, my cousins, my brother, my aunties, everybody that I knew reflected in somebody here. So it was such a resemblance that it was like I ain't went nowhere. And then when we get to the repack community and people that we both know, it's like Mama Ama and Angel, and
Hmm.
it's like y'all look like my aunties and my sister. Mama Ama looked just like my oldest sister on my daddy's side.
Wow.
And so even that, it was a coming home, to find the lost ones and to bring that back.
Yes.
And that was
Yes.
empowering my first year. Like that Thanksgiving, I was like, oh my God, I know you. I know we family. I know we family. Like, where your people from? Who your people? And so that is one of the great experiences about being in the Gambia. It's just the connection.
Hmm.
Really is, it's the connection, and it goes with the ups and the downs, because definitely rainy season, if rainy season will bring anything in, rainy season to do it, that right now to do it, like, oh, definitely.
I do appreciate the fact that I've met people in the Gambia from the United States that I probably would have never met in the United States. I probably, the chances of my bumping into you in
Right.
Queens, New York is just about impossible, or passing through the airport. But for us to be called to the same place right around the same time, I think is really very special. I think this was a spiritual movement for most of us. One of the things that I do appreciate is the identity that I have as a Black person, as a person that wants to appreciate the African in me. Um, it's already here in my home. You know, I was able to appreciate it more because I had to clean the house. It hasn't been cleaned in about 3 years. My son was like, I did the cleaning. Okay, there's your cleaning, and then there's my cleaning.
Yes.
So I got a chance to like go through things, go through pictures, wipe the dust off the masks that are on the wall. Some of the,
Right.
it was that kind of stuff. Um, the earthiness of the colors and things that I purchased on my travel, and I realized that I have this pillow in my bathroom, and it's a picture of a silhouette of a Black woman's face on a yellow background. I
Beautiful.
have Black dolls that I've purchased throughout the areas where I've traveled. I go to the souvenir shop and bring back a Black doll with the name of the country or island on there. And so I have like 7 or 8 dolls that's sitting on my rocking chair in my bedroom.
Nice.
The beauty and the awareness of who I am and how I show up on this earth is already reflected around me. And when I think for me, Jewel, because I was like, why did I have to go to Africa? It was the spiritual part that needed to be connected. I already had the other part, who I am and how I wanted to show be reflected as I walked the streets because I had to code switch. I worked in big law in corporate America in Midtown on Fifth Avenue. And so I could never have gone to work with shells in my hair. I
Mhm.
never really wore my hair down. It was always up. It was in a bun. It was in a ponytail, you know. I always wore muted colors, you know, navy blue and gray and black. And so to be able to pick vibrant colors and colorful, you know, colors in the fabric. I could go as colorful as I want. And it didn't even really have to match. I could put flowers with stripes and you know, and it was okay, you know. So that part I began to take hold of. So there was a freedom that I learned in how I wanted to express myself in my clothing. So that I did appreciate. But then I began to understand why I had a yearning to be at the ocean. I
Mhm.
understood now why I liked candles around the house. I never really lit the candles a lot. You know, we were taught candles are for like, you know, when you want to be, you know, sexy and you want to get sensual. Candles are for relaxation when you're taking a bath and stuff like that.
For all of
But
that and more, and so much more.
and more, and it's the and more part, the
Right.
more part
Mhm. So
that
light
I
your
began.
candles. light your
Yes, and
light your candles. There's magic in candles. And
exactly.
that magic is
I
in you.
so I do appreciate the fact now I can come home and I can light a candle and it's more spiritual. And I'm now burning incense in the house because I'm used to being in the Gambia. And you know, you go into there's that store in Tropic Mall, and she has those large jars, and they're full of beautiful things that smell good when you burn it. And so I miss that. There was a spray I used to have to spray around the house that wasn't aerosol. It wasn't in a can. And I miss that. And so having the opportunity to burn incense in the house reminds me of Gambia. It takes me back to that time. And then when I started cleaning a bit more, I have rocks that I have collected on a beach in Long Island. I have stones that I have collected while being in certain countries and found it on the street and took it home because it meant something to me. I have cigars that I bought from Cuba, and I was reminded my grandfather smoked cigars. Now, I don't smoke, but I felt this desire to take that back with me. And then I looked at all of the pictures I have, and when I spoke to a really good friend of mine, and she told me that she has an altar, and she shared with me a portion of her altar all of the things that I need. Do you know I bought a jar of honey before I left?
Mm-hmm.
And I have it on my table. And when I was going through, I'm pushing something through, I'm manifesting something here that's taking place there on my compound. And I got my candle, I had my honey, and I had my incense right up there on that table. And so I'm learning how to gather those things together and put them in one space where I could honor the ancestors, where I could go in prayer and make a request.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there's a tree in my tiny backyard. Okay, so here's the funny thing. I never knew how small my backyard was until I got home. You know, I you know, I'm used to stepping out of my house and
Right.
having this huge space in front of me. And then I get home and it's about a quarter the size. And there's this huge weeping willow tree in the center. And I'm like, oh, it's very small back there. But now I'm going out there and I'm pouring libation at the foot of the
Right.
tree. I
Give
never
thanks.
used to do that
Give
before.
thanks. Give thanks.
So I appreciate the fact that going to the Gambia, stepping foot on the motherland made me whole.
Yeah.
I
Thank
feel
you.
like I'm
Oh.
whole, you know. So,
But for
and
time,
it's
I only have a couple minutes left. It would have
uh-huh.
almost been an hour.
Okay.
So I need to wrap it up. It's time for me to go.
Yes.
I want to say thank you so much. It's an honor. It's always good to see you. You know, the States look good on you. The States look good on you. You've rested and, you know, gotten what you need. So come back soon. Take your time, though.
Not soon, soon, but soon. There's some
Oh,
things that I'm doing. I'm
okay,
coming
good.
back with innovation and creation because the goal is to make it work. So I'm like, okay, I learned some things while I was there, and then being with Adam and his wife, and they taught me some other things, and I can only get that in America. So I'm coming back with some things, and
Okay.
I want to continue this experiment. To me, this is an experiment. We
Yes.
putting things in and seeing what happens. And then we have a model that we can show to other people that are
Definitely.
still coming, because they're still coming,
Right. Definitely. Definitely. And that's what
you
this is
know?
about, creating community partnerships and cultural identity within that. Hmm.
Yes.
But thank you, Miss Leslie. We'll talk and we'll do this again soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
All right.